Powered by Arkansas, for Arkansas. This is Inside Arkansas Live.
And welcome in Inside Arkansas Live here on this beautiful day here in the great state of Arkansas. I'm your host, John Neighbors, alongside Curtis Wilkerson and Andrew Ellis, and appreciate each and every one of you for making us a part of your afternoon this afternoon. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. I'm sure you did, as we're going to have plenty to talk about here today, not only getting into what you just heard from John Calipari and the Razorback basketball team being 0-5 in SEC play. We'll get to some of your reactions that way. We'll look at the national championship game tonight. Some NFL playoffs, best and worst of the weekend, an SEC update, and, of course, your chats and your phone calls. 478-344-6623 is that number to call in. But, fellas, it's extremely cold outside, but we are inside, and we are going to make it as best of a Monday as possible. How are we feeling today?
I think that's about where I'm at, trying to make the most of a bad situation. So, hanging in there. I've accepted it, and here we are. Looking forward to the week.
Yeah, happy MLK Day. I'm trying to survive in the. It is MLK Day, right? I didn't make that up. Okay,
it is.
Making sure before I continued my bit there. But no, I've got a little box of Chips Ahoy next to me. So if you see me eating cookies, it means that I got sad during the stream, and I'm just trying to make it through it the best I can. But don't like this time of year. We need something to spice it up a little bit.
Yeah, well, here's hoping. Here's hoping something ends up happening that ends up going Arkansas's way. But I know that, of course, you guys were involved with the Pot at the Palace post-game show, and Curtis, I know you did your report cards, and everybody's really interested and fascinated by what is ever going on with Razorback basketball, because it's very much interactive and a lot of discussions being had. You got not only people here locally, you got the Kentucky fans, of course, and you even have national writers who are going out like Jeff Goodman and making a whole novella about how much he has a disdain for John Calipari and everything going on. But I guess the kind of the core thing is some fans already have mailed it in this season, even a couple games ago mailed it in this season. But when you're starting 0-5 in SEC play and you have not really looked good at all, you just get blown out by 20 points to Missouri. Is the season over? Like, I mean, honestly, is the season over for Razorback basketball and John Calipari? And when I say over, I'm talking about any sort of run that you go on, any sort of hope that you have for postseason play. Is it over? Do people just need to pack it up and look forward and hope for the best in 2025 and 2026?
Yeah, I mean, most likely that's exactly what we're looking at here. When you have, an historically bad start, then you need an historically good finish if you're going to wind up reaching your goals. So like, this is unprecedented territory. Like, it's uncharted waters that we're swimming in here with this 0-5 start. Never happened to the Razorbacks in SEC play. Never happened to Calipari coaching in the SEC. And so they would have to do something equally unlikely and unprecedented to get to where they need to be. Why would anyone expect that to happen? So like, if people have packed it in for the year, I get it. I won't do that. I can't. I've got to cover the team. And as long as I'm going to do that, like, I'm going to hold out hope that they start playing better basketball. That way I don't, feel like I want to pull my eyeballs out of my head while we watch them. But I get it with anybody who feels that way. How could you not, given the circumstances? It's frustrating.
Yeah, so I'm usually one who cautions against the must-win terminology. Like, I always kind of think it's funny when people will bring up must-win in a lot of contexts, especially when it's middle of the season. I did not think it was too dramatic to call the LSU game a must-win for Arkansas this past week, and they lost it. I didn't think it was too dramatic to call the Missouri win a must-win. In fact, before that stretch, Curtis was saying, yeah, they kind of probably need to go 4-0 during this stretch over the two Tigers and then Georgia and Oklahoma. And so, like, I think that was perfectly fair. We kind of went into those games knowing if this team was going to turn it around, it had to start then. So, yeah, to Curtis's point, technically, Arkansas could just do something that is extremely unlikely and win out or whatever. But, like, really the margin for error is getting down to, like, 0. And so, I mean, over is a stretch, but, yeah, I don't think anybody should absolutely be expecting this Razorback basketball team as of, January 20th to make the NCAA tournament and have a happy ending here.
Well, and also, I'm saying it's over just because of where it currently stands. If I'm looking at the SEC schedule the rest of the year, I'm not saying Arkansas is going to go 0-18, but I don't look at a single game and say Arkansas is going to win. Like, they will, you would think, at least one game, but there's not a game. Georgia's this week at home. I don't think they're going to win. Oklahoma is Saturday. They may win. They could win, but I'm not going to predict it. I'm not going to pick it. I'm not going to feel good about it. And I think that that's where, at least why I feel like the season's over, is because to dig yourself out of a hole like this is dadgum near impossible. And I would even, maybe, just maybe, I could feel a little bit of indication if the games are really close and they were just losing to teams at the last second or whatever. But it's just none of that. Like, you're just getting your taint handed to you right and left by teams that you at least realistically should be competitive against. So I just don't have any feelings on what positivity that can come from this. Maybe there'll be some growth. Maybe if you're looking at specifics of a player and how they develop, or maybe particular matchups or particular storylines. But as far as having any sort of successful season, that's out the window for me. Like, this is not a successful season. There's no way it can become a successful season. I mean, I'm looking at right now that if this team found a way to win 5 SEC games, I'm like, hey, that's pretty good, all things considered, which is sad, but it's true. And so with so many fans kind of giving up on it, I think the big question is, how long do you think Razorback fans are going to give Calipari? I know it's crazy to even bring up that question. It's year one. It's not even officially the end of year one. But given the expectation, given what's been going on, I mean, how much time are they going to give Cal at this program to live up to that expectation that everybody has?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, that answer is probably different for everybody involved. We were talking about it before we got on the show, but like, everybody's in their own little stage of grief with this Razorback basketball team right now. A lot of folks are still in denial about what we're seeing and still in the excuse making stage. And that's okay if you feel that way. Sometimes people feel like if they acknowledge like reality, that they're less of a fan. And that's not true, but nobody's telling you not to support your team either. You know, some people, I think a lot of people are in that anger stage where they're just really ticked off about everything that's going on. A lot of people are bargaining. You know, I was doing that last week where I was like, man, this has been really bad. Let's see if we can just piece together a pathway out of this. And a lot of people are doing that with baseball, right? Where it's like, we're going through this now because Dave Van Horn's going to get us over the mountaintop. Like, this is a trade-off we'll make. So people, I think, are approaching it in different ways. I think there's a healthier than maybe we realize portion of the fan base out there now that's like, yeah, he had to put the roster together quick, and he's got 2 really good guards coming in. Like, it's year one, you know, it'll be fine. We're okay. We'll rock with him. And then there's also the people who are like, hey, this is the same song that Kentucky fans were singing for the last 4 or 5 years, and now we're dealing with it. So let's just cut our losses now. Like, there are extremes on both ends, I think. So it's like an election, man. It's split, you know.
Yeah, ultimately, like, there's a lot of fans who were understandably discouraged by this season, but I definitely think there will be a pretty large section of the fan base that will be able to kind of just wash this and move on, especially in the offseason when portal season rolls around. Hell, we know a lot of fans who like the recruiting and like the portal and like the roster building more than they actually like the season. So I have close to zero doubt that when that portal opens up and Arkansas lands some big time guard that everybody wanted, or, you know, they get this big man, this Hunter Dickinson-esque big man that everybody liked, like, those things are going to happen, I would assume. And I think that will be a time when fans are kind of like, all right, year one was a wash, disaster, never happen again. Kentucky fans will obviously be yelling at Arkansas fans. They'll have to deal with that. And again, we've talked about it. I don't buy the whole, oh, it's okay, it's just year one thing. I really don't. But I would obviously argue that, like, Calipari can do better than this. I mean, he's done better than this every single year of his career. And so it's like, it won't always be this bad. And so, you know, you get a roster of more than 9 guys. You get a few non-freshmen that, you know, are a little bit more dependable. You know, these guys get on campus. I don't think it'll take that many fans like that long to really kind of flush year one and just move on. But I think year one obviously opens up a lot of red flags. And so that trust from the fan base, which, by the way, we've talked all year about how the connection with the fan base isn't really there. There's definitely going to be a lot of people who are just completely skeptical and are like, I'm not getting excited for anything. And hell, who are we to tell them that those people are wrong? So I think you'll have a beaten down and broken fan base. But when the offseason rolls around, I have a pretty good sense that a lot of fans are going to be able to flush it and move on pretty quickly. But how long will that last? It puts a lot of pressure on year two. Absolutely.
I keep going back to, if there was ever, you could use this for all of Arkansas sports that are struggling right now, but if there was an ever more inconsequential time to suck, like this is the worst time to suck. Like, you know, you never want to have it happen, but in a time in college sports with the crazy changes that have been going on with NIL and then transfer portal, conference realignment, you know, the revenue sharing that's about to start up, the college football playoff expansion. You know, there's just so much that has gone on here in the past 3 or 4 years. And this is the time that Arkansas has decided we are going to be bad at pretty much everything. And the one thing that you and everybody would have counted on this year to at least be entertaining and interesting and new and energized is the worst, you know, of Razorback basketball. And it's a hard thing to deal with because everyone's dancing on your grave. You know, all these other programs that you feel like you are better than as a program, you think you got a better coach, you think you got a better situation, and they're not having any problems. You know, Ole Miss is over here having a whale of a time. Mississippi State's doing pretty well. Just beat Ole Miss there at home. Everybody else is enjoying themselves, and you have just chosen this time where it felt like for a program like Arkansas to really take the next step forward, and you're not, and you're awful. So I think that's also what's been weighing on me, is knowing that this is a time where I'm not saying you can't ever get out of this as an athletic program or whatever, but man, it's just it's bad timing. It's the worst timing that you could have to have a bad year in Razorback men's basketball. And not just a bad year, but and Curtis, maybe you tweeted it out or somebody did, but this is something Stan Heath and John Pelfrey didn't even do, a start 0-5 in the SEC.
Yeah, man.
And like, this is the worst start you've ever had. And so, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. And that's why I feel like it's worrisome knowing that this is the type of thing that could either set you back and really never be able to get yourself out of it, or maybe it's just a one-off year. But the lack of understanding the predictability of what could be the future of Razorback basketball, Razorback sports in general, is just, it's scary, I guess, for Razorback fans. It's a scary thought to not know what it's going to end up or what it's going to become.
Yeah, like this SEC and basketball is not going anywhere, man. It's like great coaches, the biggest NIL budgets. You know, like all these teams are gonna continue to be really good. Maybe it won't be quite as deep or whatever. I don't know, but yeah, I mean they're gonna go out and get very talented players. Like they're gonna go out and get folks that you know, the fans can be excited about. But they also did that this year. You know, like we talk about going and getting some, you know, some transfers who are more dependable. Well, who's more dependable than the number 1 ranked transfer in the country in the portal, according to all these rankings? And then that was a flop. And who's more dependable than a guy who's already been an all SEC post player that just came off an Elite 8 at Tennessee? You know, and then that's been a flop. So I think the point is, like, you know, with the way he built the roster here, you couldn't afford to have injuries. They have. You couldn't afford to miss on your evaluations. They have on several of them. And you just hope it's like the law of averages, to where all of a sudden they hit on all these guys. It's been 2 years in a row, fellas. Like last year with Mutz was a disaster, and they went out and had a really good portal class with some of the guys they brought in, and it just didn't pan out. And then you change the coaches and you bring in a bunch of guys and you have the same results. And it's like, is this a curse? When people talk about that, that's what they mean, man. So, I mean, they're going to go out and get some guys. We'll see if it works. What concerns me about it is not, will he get capable or talented enough players? It's like, what will they be able to do with them? Like I just read that Jeff Goodman story, and it's a hit piece. So if you get your feathers ruffled, then don't read it. But it's about all of the concerns that we've been raising, that, you know, obviously Big Blue Nation is like, we warned you, we told you so. It's all that, but then it comes with anonymous quotes from a bunch of coaches in the SEC or whatever. And they're saying he doesn't know what to do with his pieces. He can't adapt. He doesn't know, you know, how to put this together. He's not getting the most out of his guys. I'm not fearful when I stare across the sideline at John Calipari. It's all that concerns me more than the players that they're going to get in.
Absolutely. And look, like, make no mistake about it. No matter what the roster is, no matter what the talent looks like, I mean, there's a couple 5 stars coming in. We would assume the transfer portal will be, you know, I mean, what they have the number 2 portal class in the country this past year. Like, they're going to have good players. They will underachieve under Cal. Like that's kind of just a given at this point. And hell, that's been going on. I mean, even the best of the best Kentucky teams kind of underachieved under Cal, but their underachieving was like going to the Elite Eight or having a great regular season and choking in the tournament or whatever. I think if you're an Arkansas fan, you just have to hope that underachieving under Cal is better than this, because this is an all-out disaster. So, like, I think those are absolutely fair concerns. I mean, look, anybody who's looking past that is crazy. I mean, we kind of knew that going in. We kind of knew that the premise was going to be get a bunch of talent and hope it wins out. It was never Cal is going to magically construct this roster and know how it's going to work. So we kind of knew that was the case coming in. I just think nobody could have seen it being this bad. And so, make no mistake, if you're going to make a case for Arkansas being better next year, it has to come from the roster. It has to come from, maybe a staff change or maybe just like some type of mentality shift. But I don't think that all of a sudden Cal's just going to start getting the most out of his talent. I just can't imagine that's a thing that's going to happen. You just have to hope it isn't this bad.
We've reached the point where we all, like Aaron Torres is a friend of the program. We all love AT, but he was even like hypothesizing on his show last night of, should he just step down at the end of the year? Like he's already there, and he wasn't saying I think he should, but he was like, kind of felt like maybe it was time after last season at Kentucky, but then he got the fresh start, rejuvenated or whatever. And he's saying it in terms of like protecting his freaking legacy. So like, when people are reacting to this season so far, it's like, it's not just us. It's really not an overreaction. Like when national folks are questioning that, I do not want that to happen. Like I want the attempt at the redemption here. But just hearing that, it kind of set me back. I was like, wow. I mean, are we really getting to the point to even think about that? Holy cow.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, because this is kind of the example I was thinking of as a beleaguered Jets fan. This is looking like Aaron Rodgers, like a thing where he was at one spot and was awesome, Hall of Fame, did everything, won a Super Bowl, MVPs, everything. And he gets a new fresh start at a new place with a new roster and a new management. And everyone's like, man, this is going to be great, because now the Jets finally have a quarterback and he's got pieces around him. He's got all he has to succeed. And he blows out his Achilles the third play of the game. And the next year he's not any good. And it was something that was discussed on one of the ESPN shows of like, should Aaron Rodgers just step down to, like you said, Kirst, to protect the legacy? Where, I mean, do you really want him to go out like that? If you're Aaron Rodgers, do you really want to go out where the lasting impression of your final 2-3 seasons as a Hall of Fame player was garbage, drama, people getting fired, shuffling of everything, and then just nothing to show for it? It kind of reminds me of the same thing, where right now it gives that vibe where if Cal can't figure this out or can't get it done, or if he sees it as himself where I'm not going to get this done, maybe that needs to happen. I'm not saying it should, and I don't want it to. But I'm just trying to put myself in Cal's shoes of, if you're a Hall of Fame coach and you felt like this could be a new fresh start for you and it's going horrible, disastrous, bottom dweller, getting made fun of, getting wrecked. It's like, this ain't worth it. I'm just going to end it right now and just be remembered as a Kentucky Memphis coach that won a championship and a bunch of Final Fours. This is not how I want to go out. So maybe that is something to think about.
Not after 1 year.
Yeah.
Not unless you go over, that's kind of been my stance since last week, where I'm like, it might stink regardless, but unless you go over, we can't do he's got to go or he should step down, or at least in my opinion. I mean,
no, I fully agree. And I've always felt this way. And I felt this way ever since Brett Bielema's 2013 year. If you go over in the SEC in any sport, you need to be fired. Plain and simple. I don't care what year it is. I don't care what, I think Dennis Gates should have been fired last year at Missouri. No, he's not. And it may work out for him. But me personally, I'm like, you should be fired if you go over in the conference. Plain and simple.
Well, Missouri is 4-1 in SEC play. So
yeah.
I feel like Dennis Gates probably isn't the right example to cite there. I'm with you on all that. I agree that I think year one is probably like, because does that really save his legacy? If he goes 1 year, goes 0-18, or even goes 2-16, and then quits after 1 year at Arkansas, would that really save his legacy all that much? Like, I understand he's not helping his legacy now, but I think that would honestly make him look even worse in the public eye, especially because he would be fading into oblivion. Like, I don't know what he would do Because if he quits at Arkansas, I would assume that ends his probably college coaching career at the very least, or like just, I don't think he would be a head coach at another college again. So I think that would actually be like an admission of guilt in a way for him to like really piss off everybody. I think Arkansas has no choice but to ride this out for as long as they can. And I think Cal kind of has no choice but to ride this out for as long as he possibly can. But all the factors of, will Cal think it's worth it? Like, because Cal has a decision to make. He's at a crossroads in his life and career where it's like, do I really want to lock in and like get in this foxhole and try and make the most of this situation? And I highly, highly doubt he's dying to like dig deep right now.
I think that's a really valid point and question there of like, is he just going to kind of coast and rest on, what got him his 850 wins, even though the game is obviously changing and adapting or whatever? Or is it like gut check, reality check? And I get it. Like, I understand like that just hasn't worked in the past or it didn't happen at Kentucky or whatever, but this is different. It's a different situation. It's towards the end of your career. Like, is there an aha moment of, man, like if I'm thinking about legacy, I'm actually going to have to change some things to turn this around and make the most of it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's something that we're just going to see how the rest of the year plays out, because if it ends up being something where they win, say 4 or 5 games, then obviously the answer is itself. You're going to be back. You're going to maybe, blow it up and have something to build upon. But yeah, if you do go 0-18, I just don't know how you're going to, like, even if you do bounce back, like you're going to go from going 0-18 to 14-4 the next year. I don't know. Maybe with the transfer portal and the roster changes and everything, it could happen. But there's just not going to be a whole lot of confidence and a whole lot of good vibes for that happening if that happens.
I know I'm crazy, but like I'm still of the belief that they'll get, 5 or 6 SEC wins here. If they don't get one this week, though, then that will be the first time where the possibility of an offer really, really, really enters my mind. Like, I get it now. Like, it's a struggle. They lost to a bad LSU team. It's really, really bad. Don't get me wrong, but I'm still not even in the mindset of for bad. They lose both these games this week, and hell, they might not even have Boogie, with the hand injury now. So I guess it's very much within the realm of possibility. But man, like, they get the bye week, and then it's at Alabama, at Texas, and then Bama comes to town after that. How do you feel about them winning a game in that stretch? So they gotta get one. We're not even talking about like, to have a path to the NCAA tournament. No. Just to get one. That's kind of where we're at.
I mean, y'all ready for a take? Y'all ready for a real take here? So I agree, Curtis, that 0-18 really hasn't entered my brain as a real possibility. I'm getting closer and closer by the day. Everybody relax. But I haven't gotten there yet where I truly think they're going to go over. And I think I would be close if they lost these 2 games. Agreed on that. I think if you're trying to make cases for Arkansas why there would be a turnaround of any sort this year, like whether it means winning 6 games, whether it means actually making the tournament, whatever, if you're making the case for why it would flip, Boogie's injury is probably up there in terms of just, hey, like Cal said, hey, we might only have 8 guys. These 8 guys got to play better. We see it happen in sports all the time, where a top piece on a team leaves, everyone has to elevate their game, and all of a sudden they find an identity that they didn't know they had. And in this particular case, it's a guy who likes to take 20-foot jump shots. I think if there's a case for it to turn around, Boogie getting injured is probably, I mean, look, and it's not going to turn around. Let's be clear. Let's be as clear as day. This Arkansas team stinks. They're not going to do anything good. But if you're looking at like what the path to it being to that would be, it would probably have to come in this stretch without Boogie.
I mean, at this point in time, I can't even disagree. I don't know. Like, it could happen. Like, it could just, maybe that's a change. Maybe that's something that gets something going. I don't know. But between that and everyone talking about the blazer that John Calipari was wearing and stuff, like, just whatever it takes, dude, just whatever, flipping it around and trying to find some different, voodoo that you can do to try to make it work. If it's the injury to Boogie Flan, who's one of your best players, reportedly, then do that. Like, whatever it takes. But I don't know. I've never seen anybody take more long twos in my life than like Dontel Jefferson back in the day, and that's a name. That's a pullback. Because he would just take the long twos, and it's just like, and it's one thing if you make them all the time, but man, I've never seen anything like it. and that's what he does.
What was blowing me away about all that was, so his hand has been hurt for the last 2 or 3 games.
Yes.
And like we've known that, and he's still just chucking it. Like, I mean, I'm not saying don't shoot at all, but I would probably limit the contested setback 23 footers and, maybe not be by far the leading shot taker on the roster, and have a bunch of no pass possessions. And like, it's just weird that there hasn't been some sort of adjustment there. If the hand was impacting the shot so much, but if he doesn't play, in these next couple games, I'm going to get people riled up by starting the John L. Davis point guard discussions. Cause I just, why the heck not, man? Just put the ball in his hands and see what happens. Probably won't be anything good, but it'd be funny. It would be funny.
Well, it's crazy how much pushback I'm expecting to get on this, because I've all week I've been reading people say Boogie's an issue. Boogie takes too many shots. He doesn't pass the ball. Give the ball to DJ Wagner. Let him cook. Give the ball to John L. Davis. Let him cook. So I mean, look, that's kind of where I'm at. Where I'm like, it wouldn't stun me at all if all of a sudden everyone started playing better individually. You started getting more out of your individual pieces when, a little bit of it's kind of like the Tremont Mark thing a little bit. Like Tremont Mark on paper is a good basketball player, but every team he's on is worse when he's on the floor. It's just one of those things. You just look at his entire career. He's been in college for 5 years. Every single team he's ever been on is worse when he's on the floor, even if he's scoring. It's just one of those weird things where sometimes that's what gets other guys going. And for Arkansas to get this whole operation going, they need to get like 4 different guys going in a big way.
Yeah, it needs to happen right now, folks. We're going to get to your chats, get to your phone calls if you want in on the conversation. 478-344-6623 is that number to call in. A few of the chats, shout out to a super chat from Joy to the World. Says, love you guys. Says, does Cal look like he's aged 10 years since leaving Kentucky? Also, Cal in blue is atrocious, not even attempting to connect with fans.
Yeah, I think is this a Kentucky
this
fan?
This is a Kentucky fan
Yeah.
who is right, by the way.
Yeah, no, we appreciate the super chat. It's interesting because for the longest, like in the preseason, it really through a lot of non-conference play, a lot of the discourse, even nationally, was like, man, Cal looks like he's lost some weight. Like he's got some more pep in his step. He's walking around. He's like, I'm happy. I'm loving coaching this team. We haven't heard so much of that. And in fact, after the, which game was it? I think it was after the LSU game, even though they lost, where he's like, listen, I tried to coach with joy. Like when you have to come out and say it, like, oh, I was just trying to clap and get the guys going. Then you know that you're really like, you're trying to fake it until you make it. There is no way he's having fun right now. And yeah, this is absolutely it's aged me 10 years. So I can only imagine how he feels for sure. The blue blazer thing, I'm going to be honest. It hasn't bothered me at all, but it did bother me in that Missouri game. And that's probably just a product of the struggles of the team, knowing that the fan base is ticked off. And I'm like, come on, guy. So it's just a product of the struggles of the team more than it is him wearing the blue. I think I'm just irritated.
I'm with you on that. Cause I was another one where that was kind of downplaying it early in the year when people would be like, he's not calling the Hogs. He's not wearing red, or he only has that one quarter zip that he wears to every single function. But I think when you have the fan base questioning whether or not you're all in or all out, it kind of, all this stuff kind of adds up. And look, we literally spent time on this show talking about, does he, is he really invested? Would he just quit? And so I think it's kind of fitting for a guy that's maybe 1 foot in, 1 foot out to not really be wearing red or embracing, the fan base, all these things.
Well, it goes back to reading the room. Like I keep saying, just read the room, man. Read the room and understand. But on the opposite side of it, if Arkansas would have won that game against Missouri, then fans would be like, wear the blue blazer. Like, just keep wearing it, be superstitious about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, it's the little things. It's the little things that continue to compile. And I get it, because he's worn red in a lot of different ways. And who knows, maybe people were making fun of him because they didn't like the way that the red style looked. But geez, just keep embracing it. Cal, just give up the suits, bro. You go in the quarter zips.
Yeah.
Try it out.
He changes before he goes in the press conferences. I like the little quarter zip he had.
Yeah. Just do something like that. Make it happen. Just a simple thing. Go to Alumni Hall. They have plenty of them. You can pick you up one. A few other chats here. A lot of good chats here that we'll try to do what we can. But Samuel Brooks says, I get it. The man is not having a good year 1, but year 2 with Leak and A-Cup is going to be so much better. Just give the man time.
You're well within your purview to feel that way. And that's okay. Like, that's what you need as a fan. Like, if you're looking for reasons to continue to be optimistic about this thing, then you go, okay, 2 top 10 recruits coming in next year. That's exciting. I will, and I'm not trying to talk you out of it. I'm just saying that is exactly the bill of goods that Kentucky fans were being sold for the last several years when, and the struggles weren't to this level, obviously, but when they weren't meeting expectations, they're losing in the tournament, and it was, but they got them boys coming in next year. They had a lot of them coming in this year, and they didn't do much with it so far. So there's going to be some skepticism involved, and we're going to get a measure of that no matter what. Now, anybody they bring in from the portal or whatever, it's going to be like, oh, is this the next John L. Davis or what? That's just kind of part of the deal. But it's okay to be excited about those 2 guys. I think they're both really good players. I'm really excited about Darius Acuff. Like, I think he's the real deal. We'll see. Hopefully that is the difference maker.
Yeah, I like both of those guys as well. But the premise of Arkansas stinks with 3 5-star freshmen and a loaded transfer portal class, don't fret, because they've got 2 5-star freshmen coming in next year. Like, I do like both of those guys as well, but I think the premise is very, very flawed. And again, nobody was saying give Cal time coming into this year. Literally not one person.
No. Also, like this, I guess one of y'all started this from Bobby G says, makes you wonder where we would be if we had just taken Darrell Walker.
It doesn't.
I started this only because I just want people to, and look, RIP Bob, I don't want to dispute his report because I know he was the one that kind of reported that Darrell Walker was interviewing. There was not a scenario where Arkansas was going to hire Darrell Walker as the head coach of the Razorback men's basketball program this past offseason. They were going to give him an offer. This is my opinion. They were going to give him an interview, a kind of courtesy. Hey, yeah, Darrell Walker, he had a great year. Let's give him a nod or whatever. I think if the Cal thing hadn't worked out, you were going to likely look at a Jans or a lower level high major coach or something like that. I do not think there was a scenario where Darrell Walker was going to be the head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks when he has like a below 500 record in the MVC or whatever.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. A few more here, and then we'll get to the phone lines and continue on with the rest of the show too. Let's see. I guess Hog On it says, without Cal, we aren't getting the NIL we have right now. Fire Cal, and you pour money down the drain. This is the truth.
Well, they almost certainly wouldn't be getting as much.
No,
I mean, and they weren't with Muss, but that's a big part about this too. Like, you need to be able to get the same amount of investment after a year where you're not getting any return on said investment. The good thing is him and Tyson are boys, like it's not even about everything else. Like, I think he's safe from that standpoint. But do I think Tyson's going to be cutting a $8-10 million NIL check for the next guy? Depends on who it is. I don't know what other close friends he has in the coaching profession, man. So.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for. Is maybe there's some other big donor like the Waltons or something, or maybe Jerry Jones. Actually, no, I don't want Jerry Jones doing that. It's just somebody that's got some good connections with another big time Razorback or maybe a potential Razorback basketball coach. That would be nice. And then, okay, I want to address this too before we get to phones. Evan says, do y'all think that if next year athletics suck across the board, there will be serious consideration to leave the SEC or too much money to stay and suck? Evan, I'm not coming down on you on this, but this is something I've talked about until I'm blue in the face that anybody ever brings it up. No, zero chance. Absolutely not. Because here's the thing. Say in football, you went 6-6 this year. You lost to the worst Big 12 team in the country. So, like, who's to say that if you went to the Big 12 that things would just magically be better? Maybe they would, but there's no guarantee in that. And then in basketball, the reason you're 0-5 in the SEC is just because you're just in a too good of a conference. That's loser talk. Like, that is a loser talk that I don't want to be a part of. Be like, oh, this is just too tough to be among the best of the best. We got to get to the other spot. No, I don't want to hear that. Like, you need to stay in the SEC. It's not just about the money, but if you want to be one of the best programs out there in a sport, you want to be a part of the best. So there's just no chance that happens ever.
Yeah. Right. For better or worse, they ain't going anywhere.
Not at all. All right, let's go ahead and get to the phone lines real quick. Got a few people calling in. Oh, we got to go straight to this one, of course. So one of our favorite callers, Jan, is in Wichita. What's up, Jan?
Hey, guys. Well, another sad weekend, of course.
Unfortunately.
And we're in the freezer up there. It's just cold. More depression. Well, Curtis, I was agreeing with you before the season that we need more players. Does he not realize we are in the black hole of injuries? Does anyone look back at Jalen Fadlon, Bucket Sanders, Nick Smith, Trevor Brazil?
Yeah, it's frustrating for sure. And it's always hindsight to look back in those things. But as soon as he went with the 9 scholarship guys, you were thinking, okay, this could work, but the only way it does is if you stay healthy and you hit on every, guy that you bring in here. But what frustrates me the most about it is he didn't even pick 9 healthy guys. Like Jonas Adu was supposedly the X factor. Those were his words himself, according to what I'm told, that they really felt like having Jonas Adu out there was kind of the engine that was going to drive this thing. And he came on his visit injured, and he was injured all summer, and he had surgery. And so you knew that you only had 9 guys, and that one of them, a critical piece, was already hurt. And you didn't go out there and do anything to get yourself an insurance policy. So that's a lesson. That was an experiment failed. I think we can all agree on his part, and hopefully he's learned from that and will get more players and more guys he can turn to moving forward.
Well, I hope you're right. I was having that fear due to our black hole with injuries in the past. And then I have a off-the-wall suggestion again. Maybe a little more feasible than the crystals last time. Not too much. I'm not aware of our players, but how bad could it possibly be to try someone that maybe could fire off a few shots and actually get to the basket?
I don't think I caught the last part of that.
Yeah, can you repeat that, Jan?
I said, how bad could it possibly be to use someone off the bench that could maybe fire off some shots that could go through the basket?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if what's the definition of insanity, right? Like you keep trying the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Like if Boogie Flan's going to be missing some time here and they have one more guy go down, they're not going to have a choice. But I understand why people turn to that. It's a little bit complicated because there is a stark drop off in talent with those other guys. But, just when things are going so poorly, and in some of these games, they've been competitive and they've just kind of not played winning basketball down the stretch and lost. But in a game like the other day, for example, where it's over as soon as it starts and, Missouri goes on this 18-0 run or whatever, and you're just looking for something, anything. If they wanted to throw Melo Sanchez out there and say, hey, shoot a couple threes just for a few minutes, see if he can hit a 3, take a charge, and at least get people excited to play out there, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I don't know that it would really change anything, but we're all searching for answers right now. And that I get it. That's one thing he hasn't done yet.
Well, that's the only suggestion I can think of. I know there's got to be someone that can shoot the ball and do as well as Nellie Davis has done. And maybe they won't dribble it off their foot or their knee. I don't know.
Ideally, yeah, I hear you.
Okay, that's all I have. You guys keep on keeping on.
Thanks so much for the call. John, where are you? Am I the only one that can't hear John?
I was like, I couldn't.
That was on me. That was on
Oh,
me.
there he is. Okay.
Yeah, because I got this little thing called a board that I mute myself whenever I'm either about to sneeze or about to cough, or I am, it's not important to get into details. So we'll just continue to roll on here in the phone calls real quick before we move on to some other segments. Let's get Jeremy, who's in Tulsa, who's been patiently holding. What's up, Jeremy?
Hey guys. Hope you guys are doing good. Can you hear me okay?
Gotcha.
Okay. I got an echo on my end, so I was hoping that wasn't on your guys' end. But, I was calling in to, I had 2 questions, one for Curtis and one for Andrew. The one for Curtis, I think, is, kind of been answered over the course of me sitting on hold and listening to you guys talk. So, my thoughts about the Calipari situation are just, I don't know, it feels like that he's 1 foot out the door almost. And you look at the, John Calipari's history, the way that he's recruited even here at Arkansas, attack the transfer portal, it doesn't necessarily make sense of why we should be in the current state that we're in, other than maybe John Calipari, I don't know, is not as passionate about developing the guys or, watching film, trying to fix some of the mistakes. Because, I look, I don't remember the exact, offensive rebound boards that we gave up, but I know against Florida it was bad. And, I watched a little bit of the LSU game, and we're not even putting a butt on anybody. It's just kind of like, well, we hope the ball falls in our lap, and, that's a recipe to lose the game. So, and if that's the case, if John Calipari thought that he was going to take the Arkansas job and just kind of coast and, Arkansas is going to be okay with the fact we have a guy named John Calipari as our head coach, we as fans, if that's true, I'm just theorizing here, should be disrespected by that. You look at the rafters at Bud Walton, and I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, 11 Elite Eights, 6 Final Fours, a national championship. I don't think that's, necessarily blue blood material, but that's definitely not something that we should just be okay with. Okay, we got John Calipari, the rest is going to ride itself. So, that's just kind of my hypothesis in the John Calipari. It just kind of does seem like that he has one foot out the door. So if you guys want to comment on that, but my question for Andrew, that was going to be a question directed at Curtis, but you guys, I think, answered that. But Andrew, I didn't know if you saw, I don't know if you keep up with D1 baseball at all, or listen to the guys, but I was listening to them have the breakdown of the top 25 with Runes and Fitzy, KR, and Joe Healy. And Runes actually said that his national championship pick is Arkansas this year. And obviously he knows more baseball than me, so I liked hearing that. But just curious on, his preseason pick and your thoughts on that. So as Jan said, you guys keep on keeping on. Thanks for bringing the content. I know it's tough, but guys like me who aren't in the program on a daily basis really enjoy the content and insight. So I appreciate it, guys. Take care.
Appreciate you, Jeremy. Thanks for calling in.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. I guess I'll start with the baseball one just to get it out of the way. I don't love it whenever a national guy picks Arkansas to win the national title. I feel like every time that happens, it goes south. Obviously, all these guys, all the national guys will pick their team, and I'd imagine one of them per year is right or so. But I don't know. I kind of like the idea of Arkansas flying. I wasn't thrilled about the 13. I was okay with 5. I just don't want Arkansas to get that much attention, frankly. Unless they, start 21-1 and it's like, okay, we really got to start talking about this team. But I don't know. I don't like how many people are kind of starting to put the pieces together and realize Arkansas is good.
I feel like Arkansas baseball needs to kind of have a season like Alabama basketball is right now, where you enter the year with some really high expectations, but they've just kind of flown under the radar, handled their business, and they're right where everybody expected they should be, but nobody's really talking about them that much. Like that seems like the pathway maybe.
Because no matter what you do in the regular season, you're gonna have but what if you choke in the postseason? So it's like I agree with that.
Yeah. It just needs to almost get to the point to where you're like what it was when Arkansas went to the World Series just a couple of years ago. Like everyone was talking about Tennessee because they were like 56-8 or whatever it was. That's all it was. And then they lost and nobody even thought about you. And you're like, oh, we're in the World Series. It's great. Like, yeah, have somebody else do that. That's what I'm saying.
And then the basketball thing, I will just comment real quick. He's talking about does he have 1 foot out the door thing? For me, like, is it 1 foot out the door or did you never have both feet in? And I think we're getting mixed messages there because like on one hand, like he's got Nolan Richardson back and involved in the program. He's taking the team all over the state doing these things. And seems like he's trying to really do the, this is your team kind of thing. But then on the other hand, we don't really have any access to his players to get to know them. He's even said a million times, like, this is it's like the Calipari U thing, right? It's like, oh, same situation. We just changed the headquarters or whatever. So on one hand, it's like he's really trying to make that effort to embrace. And then on the other, it's like, nah, dude, this is like, it's kind of about me. Like, it doesn't matter where I'm at. Like I'm going to do the same thing and get the same results. So it seems like a very mixed message that's being put out there to me.
Y'all let me know if I'm overreacting or not. Cause I was thinking, because all year we've been kind of having this conversation about, does Cal really care about Arkansas? And people have had their doubts from the beginning. And I really want to point that out. I remember at his press conference, and he said it multiple times when he references that game where he got ejected and Kentucky came back and won. He always says, "We came back and won.
Yep.
We won that game. We won that game." And he's referring to Kentucky, but really he's referring to himself. He's referring to his staff, my situation. And I think that's it. I mean, again, not a big deal because he was back then. He was we. But I think that kind of speaks to the larger point that he views himself as kind of his own entity. He's almost like a mercenary, like a private contractor that's like just, I definitely don't think he views himself as a Razorback.
All right, well, just do a couple more phone calls here real quick before we move on. Let's I believe this is Sheila. I'm going to roll with it, but what's going on, Sheila?
Hey, it's actually Greg, but yeah,
Close
calling from beautiful Wildcat country here in Kentucky. I'm a long time listener to you guys' show. Love the show.
Oh,
Appreciate
God.
you. Hey, yeah. So as far as Calipari goes, just to add what you guys were saying, I don't know the situation as far as Kentucky, as far as Ben letting his son come there and actually be on the staff. Is this a situation where he comes to Arkansas just so you retire, coach with his son? I get the feeling he doesn't really care too much. And I think, just to add one more thing, I think Andrew's actually kind of onto something with Boogie Fland. His injury, that might be the thing that gets his team going, really. I mean, he's averaging, 18 shots a game, and let somebody else pick those shots. He's not hitting nothing. So, but anyways, guys, I'm gonna let y'all go. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
You. Appreciate that call. Civil, man. How about that? That was nice. I'll speak on the Brad Calipari thing on the staff, and I've seen a lot of people note that just over the weekend of like he leaves to come to Arkansas, and like Antigua doesn't come with him, and then Welch doesn't come with him, and then he just kind of adds. He runs it back with Kenny Payne, then he adds Brad to the staff. And I know that's something that's really important to him. He couldn't do it because of nepotism rules or whatever at Kentucky, and maybe a Kentucky fan could clear that up. I think that was the case. I guess maybe we haven't thought about that so much because it's exactly what Eric Musselman did. Yeah. It's like he had Michael on staff who, hey man, he worked hard and he was kind of a grinder out there, but like he wasn't qualified necessarily for the position that he got. And then he had his adopted son, Anthony Ruda, on the staff. Mm-hmm. So like there was a lot of that. And so I think we're just kind of numb to even thinking about that as a situation. It's just, it's almost like when Arkansas they can't shoot, right? Like they're not making any threes. And national people were talking about that so much at the beginning of the year. And we're like, well, we're used to this. Like Muss's teams didn't shoot threes. Well, now we're seeing like the father-son thing. And I don't know, like, I wonder if there's something to that. I don't know everything that he brings to the table. Like, I don't know the staff like that yet. All I'll say is that of all the guys on the staff, Brad is the one that I actually see out there on the floor, at least interacting with and working with the players the most. Like pregame, he's always working with guys on their shot. I at least see that. Him and Chuck Martin are about the only guys that I've seen out there in pregame doing stuff with the team.
I mean, I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but like objectively speaking, Brad Calipari is not the worst coach's son member of the staff Arkansas had. Like, I'm just gonna say Brad is not the most egregious example. I agree with your point as well. Is he the best shooting coach or trainer in the country? I'm sure you could probably find, but I to your point, he is always out there. I at least know what he does. I see him out there doing the workouts, individual, working with Carter Knox on specific shots and stuff like that. And you know what else Muss also did? Replaced his entire roster every year. So it is kind of funny how many people have cited that as the issue. And I'll touch on the Boogie Point thing since he brought that up. And I understand that's a hot take. Not denying that. Boogie's clearly a very talented player. Might be the most overall talented player on the team with the highest upside. He might be playing basketball longer than all these guys. But how is it that far of a stretch when we're literally talking about a team in Calipari that the talent doesn't match the output? That's like the whole premise of the Calipari experiment is you've got all this talent, but you don't get them to play winning basketball. And Boogie Fland, I feel like, is the perfect microcosm of that. Like he is the epitome of that. Very talented, but doesn't really know how to play winning basketball yet. I'm not saying it's good to lose your most talented player. But in terms of if this team is going to find some sense of identity, you could make a real argument Boogie and just did the decisions he makes has kind of stood in the way of Arkansas finding an identity offensively.
We both love us some Boogie Flan. Like there's no doubt about it. But to your point, like just to give a recent example of exactly what you're talking about here, Texas A&M and the difference in their offense with Wade Taylor and without Wade Taylor. And we know how decorated of a player he is and a scorer, but there's a lot of efficiency issues and some other things there. And then he was out and they didn't win every game. They were playing some really good teams, but you kind of watch their offense and you go, I mean,
when I see this guy that keeps bringing up Nerlens Noel, I don't understand what the comp is between a 7-foot center who played like 6 games that year and Boogie Flan. Very different situations. And look, obviously for every example of a star player that went down and his team got better, you can find one where, LeBron went down and his team got worse. Obviously that thing happens, but Nick Smith Jr. I feel like is another prime example of this. Arkansas was a better basketball team when he was not playing. And it's not because Nick Smith Jr. wasn't good at basketball. He might have been. I mean, look, he started in the NBA the other night. He's going to end up having a 10-year NBA career. But for that particular team, they tried to rush him back into action. It didn't really work out. They ended up benching him in the NCAA tournament because he didn't really help that particular team. It's not about Boogie and how good he is and what he can do. There's plenty of ways for him to be very effective and, a solid. I mean, we've seen that in non-conference play against worse teams that he can carry Arkansas. But I think when you're talking about a team that kind of needs to find something, I think you could do worse than maybe spreading the ball around a little bit more.
And before we get to our final call, I'll just say, going back to the nepotism thing or whatever, again, it's one of those things that doesn't matter if you're winning. But just remember, folks, from 1990 to 2000, you know who was an assistant coach on Arkansas staff? Nolan Richardson III. Nobody had a problem with it. There was no issues with it because they were winning. So again, to me, the nepotism thing is because it's one of those things you only hear about it when they're losing. It is never brought up ever when you're being successful, but only when you're losing does it become an impact. All right, final call here. We'll go ahead and welcome in. I guess this is Brent from Searcy, I believe. What's up, Brent?
What's going on, John?
What's up, man?
I just want to say I loved your Locked On Razorback this morning.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, you're the only person other than myself that sees where the problem is with this athletic department.
Well, I don't think that's the case. I think there's probably a lot of people that see it that way. But yeah, it's not been very fun for the past 9 months. I can tell you that.
Do you really, John? You think people see it?
I mean, I think so. But then again, yeah, it's kind of hard to read the room when there's so many fans and so many people having different opinions on it. But maybe.
Can I say something about it? Then let's do something about it, Dr. Charles Robinson and all the other people in control. Let's do something about it. Let's allow Hunter to have all the time he wants to find other jobs when he's not employed. Let's do something about it because they do not respect the Razorback fan in that athletic department right now. They do not. End of discussion.
Well, maybe that's the case.
I appreciate you getting that message out there, John.
Well, appreciate you listening in, Brent, as always, man. Yeah, thanks for calling in. Yeah, we got to move on. But yeah, I actually did want to get to one of the comments that was made dealing with that specific thing. Because I think Hogbud says, what is the feeling on the Hill about Hunter? He's totally destroyed the football program. Now he's doing the same for basketball. Will baseball follow? A new AD is needed. Here's the thing. I want to be honest. Like Hunter Yurachek, I have zero. Like he doesn't need to be blamed or anything like that for the John Calipari thing that's going on right now. Zero. Like that, we all would have made that move if we got approached by John Tyson as the AD, and they were like, "Hey, we think we can get John Calipari." Not one single one of us would have been like, I just don't like that hire, Not one of us would have done that. But it is, I was laughing about it because I just went through Hunter Yurachek's, because we're talking about Twitter notifications. I have Hunter Yurachek's Twitter notifications turned on, and I just went through a few of them, and it was just really funny to see. I'm going to just give the first 2 words of every tweet that he's had over the past few weeks. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck. Well done. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck, good luck, good luck, good luck. Congrats. Good luck, good luck, good luck. congrats. Good luck. I mean, it's unbelievable. Now, this is Twitter, so it's not like, oh, that's the only thing that he does in his job and everything. But it is just kind of funny to me where he just radio silence, and that's all you see from him. And it's not a good situation for anybody to be in. But the athletic director, when everything's bad in the athletic program, that's where things are going to get thrown to. So
I'll say this on Hunter Yurachek. I am not I'm not like the biggest Hunter Yurachek defender. Like I think I've probably said more mean things about him than anything else, but did he ruin Arkansas's football program? Because I don't remember him hiring Chad Morris. He hired Sam Pittman, which, like, you know, we can talk about that. I think they could have made more aggressive moves then, but I don't know if that ruined the football program. I would argue, and I did argue, that he should have had the cojones to fire Sam Pittman after this past season, because it would have been the perfect time to do it. But I don't know if Hunter Yurachek ruining the football program is necessarily how that played out. And I also agree with John where, like, I wouldn't blame him necessarily for the basketball thing. Again, since we didn't even give him credit for the hire, we said that it was John Tyson that hired Calipari. And to your point, everyone would have made that move. Like, we didn't have a problem with it in the moment.
Yeah.
Here's my question. And I think I agree with all those points there. But if, let's say, Arkansas is in the market for a football coach after next season, and Arkansas basketball is in the market for a new coach after next season or in 3 years or whatever, how great do you feel about Hunter Yurachek making those hires?
Not great. Not great.
Yeah.
And then look, that's why I'm like, I wanted to clarify, like, I'm not like,
for sure.
I'm not like a Hunter Yurachek guy by any means, but I just would caution against, like, the notion that, like, he ruined football and he ruined basketball. But I agree. Like, I think you would definitely like to see a little bit more direction, a little bit more, hey, we're going to be fine. Hey, here's what I have to think about this. And yeah, I would say the track record of hires hasn't been elite.
No. And I hate it, because I was actually somebody who was a fan of Hunter Yurachek and thought he did a good job. But geez, I think the one thing, because I know we got other things we'll get into, but the one thing that just bothers me and maybe is so evident, because we don't know all the ins and outs and what goes on behind the scenes, but man, if they say NIL, which is the biggest factor, the biggest key in all of this, if the NIL is not great, or if it's problematic, or you don't have the money or whatever it is for the other programs, if I was the athletic director, then I would be hammering the Arkansas Edge or whatever it is, like, nonstop if it's bad, but there's no promotion to that. And so fans are just kind of like, okay, well, it doesn't seem like you want our help. And yet it just seems like you're saving money. No one's spending any money on anything. I mean, it's not like coaches are getting big raises or all that. I know the basketball NIL is great, but we all know where that comes from one particular individual. So it's just kind of like, you know, what are you promoting? There's no fundraising going on, really. It's a very weird situation.
It feels like they were promoting that revenue sharing thing that they just kind of got kicked in the nuts with the Title IX, to where they might not have as much money as they thought they would to go towards football. Like, I wonder if there's some scrambling going on from that standpoint, and like some recalculations maybe, you know, involved there with the numbers. And then, you know, do they relaunch a collective campaign here again? It's like, hey, we still need your money. I wonder what that's going to look like, because it just, in everything that we heard from, you know, Sam Pittman, I remember his press conference, you know, before portal season really got going, where he was like, oh, you know, hey, revenue sharing. Like, yeah, we got money now. And you do, but do you have as much as you thought you did? You know, so.
Which, by the way, is worth considering when you're talking, when, you know, whoever was earlier that asked about, could Arkansas leave the SEC? It's like, not when they're hanging their hat on the SEC checks and the SEC revenue sharing and all those things, which may or may not even be real. But yeah, I definitely do not believe that Yurachek is sitting over there with a master plan of how to fix all this.
No, I don't think so either. And, you know, a vote of no confidence is what the political realm is, and I think that's how people feel about it. All right, again, we'll get to your chats here after a while, folks. We got some other things we'll get to, but let's get to your Arkansas update presented by Davis & Garrett Insurance, your independent auto owners insurance agency, securing what matters the most. Not a whole lot, because we talked about the Razorback basketball team and everything. Things have been pretty quiet on football, but you know, the Ladybacks lost by 32 yesterday, guys, to Alabama at home. So there's that.
Didn't Izzy, like, she had a very off game per her standards. I mean, if she's not scoring like 30, which is nearly her average, I mean, they don't have a chance.
Golly, dude.
I saw the
Shout out to
spread was
them, by the
Go
way,
ahead.
because if it wasn't for them beating Auburn, Arkansas would be one of 4 power conference teams that doesn't have a win in either men's or women's basketball in conference play. Yeah.
Thank you, Mike Neighbors. You have saved us.
Yep.
But yeah, I saw the spread was like 18.5 or 19, somewhere in that range. And I remember kind of thinking, I was like, should I place a little bet against the Ladybacks? I didn't know anything about Alabama basketball, women's basketball in particular. I didn't know if they were cooking or not, but I wish I had taken that.
Yeah. Well, Arkansas's losses in the SEC so far, they've had 4 of them in women's basketball, have been by an average of 37 points. Or 34 points. So, yep, there's that. It's not really the thing that happened over the weekend. Talking men's basketball, there's women's basketball too. But hey, the gymnastics meet's going to be happening this Friday, which I know people are excited about. So,
Cool.
hang your hat on that. Have some fun with that too.
Who's coming to town? Do we know?
It's a team by the name of Louisiana State University.
Oh, okay.
That's Friday night.
Friday night. Bud Walton.
Damn, that snuck up on me.
Yeah, I plan on going to it. I'm going to go to it. I haven't been to a gymnastics meet since I've been back here in Fayetteville, so I want to check it out and try to go to it because I went trying to go to a softball game this spring and go to a gymnastics meet, obviously. But then I don't know. I went to a soccer game this past year, so I try to mix it up a little bit, see some winning for a change. Being really nice. So, all right. On that note, too, let's go ahead and jump into the best and worst of the weekend, folks, because there's plenty of things that happened that were good, plenty of things that happened that were bad, and that's why we discuss them and we have some fun with them. But if you're interested in becoming the sponsor of the best and worst of the weekend, hit us up and on InsideArkansas.com/advertise. We'll get you all squared away in that partnership. But fellas, I'll go ahead and start with the best, my best of the weekend. Mick Cronin, I love his press conferences nowadays, but he's always just fired up. Hopefully the audio quality works out all right because this is just taken from someone's phone. But just another thing in talking about the travel, the Big Ten, and the craziness, and just really you're always going to get a really honest answer from Mick Cronin. Take a listen.
Just what you've seen on the
They're
court.
telling them?
Yeah.
Is that a joke? Please tell me that's a
Isn't
joke.
even comparable, is essentially what I'm trying to say.
Have you ever looked at the NBA stats and what the gamblers and all those people do on West versus East? Talk to Eric Musselman, ask him that question. He coached in the NBA. Good luck, West going East. Okay, and ask me UCLA's record east of the Mississippi in the last 20 years. Because when I got the job, I looked it up for scheduling purposes. It's under 500. Okay, we have to go back 4 times. Oh, the Big Ten teams get to come to Los Angeles where it's 70 degrees 1 time a year. They don't even have to switch hotels. We're in the same, we're 12 miles apart. Are you kidding me? Please tell me you're kidding me. Is this a plan? Is this a plan question? I mean, you cannot be serious with that. And meanwhile, we've seen the Eiffel Tower, or we've seen the Statue of Liberty twice in the last 3 weeks while we were landing. We also saw downtown, we also saw the Capitol building. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, you can't possibly, and we still got to go back. And then we got to go back for the Big Ten.
I wanted to play it mainly because of the Muss reference, and I'm like, it spreads because that is some Muss stuff right there. I just love it.
I'm surprised that Mick Cronin has done that rant before Muss.
Yeah, honestly. Well, and maybe he did, and just nobody's really paying as much attention to USC basketball. But still, yeah, that felt like, he talked about a planted question. I felt like that was a planted answer by Eric Musselman. Him and Nickman sending some text back and forth.
That was my first reaction because I think he said that knowing, because I bet he's talked to Muss about this exact topic and probably knew Muss had a very strong opinion on it. So he's like, dude, ask Eric Musselman that question because I know Muss has been complaining about that.
Do we think if John Calipari was Muss's only friend in the SEC coaching fraternity, that Mick Cronin is his guy in the Big Ten?
I would say so.
Maybe.
I think that might be the case. First of all, know your monuments, guy. Eiffel Tower.
I'm country.
That was pretty funny, man. But I understand the frustration, but like your schools, your administrations, you all knew what you were getting into. Like you signed up for this, so.
You're also going to get the other end of it. Like, it's not like Rutgers doesn't have to travel to LA. Like they're going to come back the other direction. Like it's, I get it. It sucks traveling across the country, but it's not like it's all one-sided.
No. It just, I guess to them, it feels like it because they live in their own little bubble, and that's all that matters. So, but that's one of my best of the weekend. Curtis, what about you?
Nick Smith Jr. How about that? Got his
Pretty
first start. Good for him.
Yeah.
15 points, 5 rebounds. That was really good to see. And, especially seeing that at a time where like Anthony Black is getting a lot of praise for stepping up. The Orlando's got injuries and everything. So a couple guys off of that team who are really highly touted, who are starting to see some success. So excited for them. That's about all I got. But I mean, Taylor Swift and Caitlin Clark hanging out. I mean, that was awesome.
Yay.
Kidding.
Oh, golly.
Happy birthday, Anthony Black, by the way.
Is it AB's birthday? Good for him.
It's
Is
his
he
birthday.
21 yet?
20. I think he might be drinking alcohol tonight.
Oh, he's going to have his first drink of alcohol tonight? That's cool.
Yeah.
Very
How about
first.
that? Good for AB. Maybe he can go
Big
to
time, man.
Epcot and Disney World and drink around the world. That'll be how he celebrates. But yeah, good to see the Pro Hogs in action. Curtis, I can't believe you didn't give your boy Yuri Prohaska some love for best of the weekend. That had to be your favorite moment of the weekend.
It was, but like I said, I'm literally trying my best to not take all the good things before we
There you
pass
go.
the mic.
So, John, there's this dude named Yuri Prohaska who he like truly in his heart of hearts believes he is a samurai, and he lives by the samurai code. He looks like a samurai. He acts like a samurai. He trains in the wilderness. He locks himself away in darkness. He does the Aaron Rodgers thing, but in a more authentic way, where he locks himself away for like 4 days with no food or drink or anything, just his thoughts. He's a psycho, but he got a knockout win on the UFC main card. It was a good UFC main card, honestly. UFC 311. You had a first round sub to start the card, a first round knockout, a third round knockout, and then a decision. But it was like a great fight with Merab and Umar, and then first round sub. It was a lot of things that were supposed to happen happened. It's good to see the Dagestani guys taking an L. Frankly. Nice to see that, but it was a fun weekend of fights, and I don't know if I have anything other than that for best of the weekend.
Well, I was laughing because I don't know if you guys ever went to a class, which I know I went to a lot of them, at least in the beginning, where you start and you're like, okay, I kind of get it, but then by day 2 or 3, you're like, it's gone. They just move way too quickly and way too fast. That's how I feel like with UFC sometimes with y'all, where over the weekend I was seeing a message like, oh, I'm going to share this with the guys, and then it just went too fast, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening, so I don't even want to share it. Be like, why is this guy doing this with his arm? But one day I'll be able to catch up on it all. But I do have one more best of the weekend. This was just completely random. Well, it's almost feel like it's Tosh.0 a little bit, but this was a crazy little video that I saw of the world record of how many, I guess, jumps in a jump rope in 30 seconds. Guys, this is real time, by the way. Watch this guy. It's pretty crazy.
Did y'all do jump rope for hard back in the day?
Yeah.
That was me at jump rope for hard.
I
I won
bet.
that.
Yeah,
I won
I
that
bet.
when I was in 3rd grade. That was impressive.
Yeah.
That was really impressive.
I know. I saw that and I was like, I don't really know what to think about that. I don't even know how you get to that point. And I just couldn't imagine the burn that how many calories did he burn in that's just 30 seconds? I don't even know, but still pretty cool. But worst of the weekend, I'm going to bring this up, and I don't mean to steal your thunder, Andrew, because I'm sure you have thoughts on it, but NFL playoffs, Chiefs and Texans. I was watching the game with a lot of Chiefs fans where I was at in Shreveport because they were all from Kansas City. So I kept my mouth shut and everything. But, there's this whole thing that keeps going around about the referees always giving the benefit to the Chiefs and to Mahomes. And Will Anderson had this comment after the game and talking about the game itself and the playoffs. Of course, they lost, but about the referees and the officiating in the game itself.
This organization, this team, all year, man, he has blessed us and favored us tremendously, man. And I just got to give all glory to him. And we knew it was going to be us against the refs going into this game. And, I talked to you guys early this week. And I was just telling them, we got to go out there and we got to do us better. And, in some instances we didn't do that, in some instances we did. So we just got to keep going, man. Next offseason, get the guys together, man. And, everybody just coming together and just keep building that team chemistry and get past this hump.
So I just love that quote. because one, he starts about all glory to God and everything, and he's like, we knew it was going to be us against the refs, just straight up. So again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist when it comes to this, but just seeing, I will admit, the Chiefs, for whatever reason, they get the benefit like crazy. There was like, and I love Patrick Mahomes, but I'm starting to really lose respect. There were so many times he flopped, and I'm like, what are we doing here, man? Like, there's just no reason for that. It's football. Like, you don't have to do that. But yeah, the benefits and the calls and some of that stuff, it's not why the Chiefs won only, but golly, it just gets obnoxious every single time.
Yeah, it's an interesting call out. He's got some JD Note to him at the podium.
Yeah, he does.
After a season-ending loss.
Golly, I need to go back and get that clip. Just I want to replay it when I'm never needing to be put in a good mood, because I was always a JD Note fan. I was like, dude, that's the way you go out as a Razorback. Just be like, yeah, we ain't getting those calls. When you play a team like Duke, it's just not going to happen. So I was like, on his way out.
Man.
Officiating was not the reason the Texans lost, but it did objectively cost them at least 3 points. Because Will Anderson, in particular, I'm sure he's thinking about. I mean, he was called for the worst roughing the passer flag in a while. Yeah. Like, it's a tough one. And maybe, like you said, Mahomes was flopping around. There was a play last night where Lamar gets full on tackled out of bounds, and it wasn't that crazy. It wasn't like super egregious, but like was full on tackled out of bounds. And I'm like, dude, if that had happened to Mahomes, they would have ejected the player, like, legitimately. And I know a lot of people were making those jokes. It's just kind of one of those things. I mean, the Texans having your kicker not completely pissed down his pants in the biggest game of the year would have helped as well. But when you add in, like, 3 to 7 points due to officiating, and about 8 points worth of kicks that we botched on, it's really hard to win in Kansas City when you don't have those factors going against us. Ultimately, though, the Texans weren't good enough to win. I can accept that.
Well, a little bonus to that too. Another worst thing. I don't know, like the opening kickoff where you had the guy for Texans throw his helmet off and get 15 yards, and he goes and shoves the special teams coach. I'm like, dude, what are you? Wait, I'm sorry. That's now courtesy. I'm calling you out because I know you've been a coach, but it's like, if I was a coach, I've been like, okay, you go to the locker room and you're fired. Like, you are just straight up fired. Like, you're on the special teams, my man, and you're going to get a 15-yarder, and then you're going to shove me. You're fired. Not you ride some pine, buddy. No, you're fired. Get out. Like, I just could not believe that happened.
I feel like I would have been too shocked. I would have been like, what the heck is going on here? You just never expect to see that. I guess Travis Kelce sort of did it last year.
Yeah.
Was that last year?
Travis Kelce?
Yeah. Or whatever. Yeah, man, that was nuts. I forgot about that, and I was texting Andrew in real time about it. Like, what the heck is this guy doing? How about LiAngelo Ball? He could be best and worst of the weekend.
No, that was awesome.
Best for, just going completely. I mean, he's going to go platinum with this hit here that he dropped, and then worse because he performs at the Lions game and they lose, and now he's getting the Drake curse allegations. I mean, dang.
Devastating stuff there for Detroit. Yes. I'm not even kidding. I felt worse for Detroit than I did for the Texans, who I wasn't super confident as you guys. I wasn't like going into this being like, hey, we got to win. I didn't expect the Texans to win. The Lions, dude, that hurt my feelings seeing them lose. That's a tough one for that franchise. The average ticket price was like $800. It was like a big event in Detroit, man. You had LiAngelo Ball there. It doesn't get bigger than that. It doesn't get bigger than LiAngelo Ball performing at halftime. But yeah, that was very sad. My worst of the weekend, by the way, of all these things, Lamar losing is the worst thing that happened in the world this weekend. That was tough. Mark Andrews is a terrorist and should be ashamed of himself. And it also is, by the way, poetic that the season started. The Ravens, I believe it was the Chiefs. It was Ravens-Chiefs week 1, and they should have had a game-winning touchdown to Isaiah Likely, but he didn't quite get the foot in bounds, and that's how the game ended. You're throwing a pass to a tight end in the end zone. It doesn't quite go your way. And then you're throwing a pass to a tight end in the end zone on a 2-point, and he just drops it after fumbling a possession earlier. I mean, it's really bad. He also had a really bad drop earlier in the game. Just a really tough outing for an all-time great Raven in Mark Andrews, actually.
Yeah, that was brutal to watch. But hey, it's the best and worst of the weekend for us. But there's still some more going on. Like tonight, there's the national championship game of college football. Man, it feels like it's so late and so relevant, but it is happening tonight. So let's talk a little bit about that. Thanks to Bet Saracen, #1 sports betting app in the state of Arkansas. You want to win some money betting against the Razorbacks? You can probably win some good dough that way. But do it with Bet Saracen. Go to betsaracen.com or download on your iPhone or on your Android. How interested are we, guys? Notre Dame, Ohio State. Where's the interest level in this game tonight?
I gotta be honest with you. Personally, I am trying, but I can't get myself very excited for this.
Me either, dude.
And I hate it because I think I've enjoyed the college football playoff a lot, but yeah, it's January 20th, man. It feels like this should be over already. And then I think it comes down to, I don't particularly like Notre Dame or Ohio State. I think Ohio State will win. I guess I kind of hope Notre Dame wins, but I wish it was doing more for me than it is, I guess is how I could put it.
Yeah, I definitely am like my interest is not super high. May or may not even watch the game, honestly. Not because like I'm like protesting or angry. It's just kind of, I have been very entertained by the playoffs, and like, both those teams earned their way into it. But in terms of like intriguing storylines, I don't think this game has a ton of them. If you just looked at the 12-team playoff and you're like, if we could pick two teams to have the most fun with, I don't think Notre Dame would be included in it, no matter how you slice it. I mean, I'm just not intrigued by Marcus Freeman being a former Ohio State player. It just doesn't do it for me. And I think Ohio State should win this game. They're like favored by at least a touchdown, maybe 8.5 some places. What is it on Saracen? Is it 8.5?
Yeah, it's 8.5 for Ohio State. Yep.
I actually think Ohio State might cover that thing. And I think it's going to be a slugfest a little bit, like 28-14 type of thing.
Yeah. Well, if you want to go to the game, the cheapest ticket right now is $2,794. So, yeah, if you want to go ahead and, not live in your house for a couple months, you can go ahead and check that out. But yeah, I just don't care really as much. And maybe it's because it's just not as intriguing. Maybe it's because, it's two teams I hate. And maybe it's because of the timing of it, because it just is so late. But that's what happens when you have a 12-team playoff. But still, game's going to be tonight. It says 6:30 on ESPN. We know dadgum well that game ain't going to start till 7:15. Yeah. Like it's just the way it is. But I at least applaud them because what was it? Maybe 2 or 3 years ago, or maybe it was last year. The championship game was like at 7:30, 7:45 on Monday night, and it didn't get over with until 12:30. It was a nightmare. So I'm glad that they're at least moving that up and changing that up a little bit. All right, so a few more things here too before we get out of here, because I know we got to talk a little bit about this. I just wanted to bring this up, folks, because it's inauguration day, not to get political, but for our Alumni Hall question of the day, just wanted to ask. Spurs presented by Alumni Hall. You can shop online at insidearkansas.com/alumni hall, as well as 3417 North College Avenue. It's the ultimate Razorback shopping experience. We're going to be there live on Friday, starting at noon. So come hang out and come see us there locally there in Fayetteville. Which current or former Razorback coach, I shouldn't have even said get the best, but maybe the most memorable opening press conference that you guys can just think of? It could be recent or whatever. I mean, if somebody says Lou Holtz, shut up. You weren't there. All right. You didn't know that. So, but just from what you've seen and what you remember, which one is the most memorable? Because I'm going to give you mine. First off,
I don't think I have anything for you, without thinking about it for a minute here.
Yeah. Dana Altman is my number one.
I've got a couple.
Well, yeah, that's good.
I mean, Dana Altman's a good one. I mean, let's just be honest. The Calipari press conference is as memorable of a moment as any of them. Like I think that might be the only one I've ever actually attended. And I haven't been covering a ton of coaching hires. But that was a big deal. That was a huge moment at the time. It was like pouring rain, but that was a fun day. Sam Pittman, when he cried at his,
I was going to say
pretty solid. Actually, that was a pretty memorable one for me. I remember Trey doing a walk and talk after and being like, Arkansas got the coach they needed. They didn't get the coach they wanted. They got the coach they needed.
Yeah, those tears.
Sam Pittman was going to be their Mark Pope, man.
Yeah.
It probably wasn't the first choice or the second choice, but he was the right choice.
Exactly.
Wasn't that the line that he brought up? Was it Sam Pittman that said he's like, I wasn't my wife's first choice either, or something like that? It was just like, good stuff there.
He referenced his wife when he was doing the portal thing, where he's like, if my wife wants to go into the portal, she ain't coming back. And if a player enters the portal, he ain't coming back. And he backtracked on that, so Jamie must have been sneaking out on him.
Sheesh.
Was it Sam where the reporter freaked out because he called her young lady?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And that was a whole thing. And it was just like, gosh, shut up. Like, it was just so annoying. I think that one, and also I'm going to bring up the John L. Smith press conference when he got, I guess, rehired or whatever it is, because I don't know if anybody remembers this, but like, obviously he was very crazy and he's crazy. And in the press conference, there was a few players that showed up, like Kobe Hamilton was there, but Niall Davis was one of them. And I just remember in his opening statements, he just goes, "Hey, Kanial Davis." See, y'all, his name's Niall, but there's a K in there, so I call him Kanial. All right, great. It's like, this guy's insane.
He's
like,
very good at being awkward, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he knew how to read the room and be like, I'm going to make this awkward and make it very uncomfortable. So, but yeah, that was pretty memorable too. But my favorite one, and I know that because I'm this type of person, was the Bobby Petrino press conference, which maybe people don't remember, and they know I'm a Bobby fan. But that one was on a Sunday night or Monday night, or no, it was a Tuesday night, I believe, because it was after Monday Night Football where he had lost with the Falcons. And it was like at 9:30, they had the press conference. And it was, in the first time I'd ever seen it, it was on ESPN live. Like, it was, you never see that, at least during that time. And he said something that will stick to me forever. He said, "We're going to run the ball when we want to run, and we're going to pass the ball when we want to pass." And the place went nuts. And I'm like,
good.
Because that was, the offense was so bad for so long at Arkansas, but that was pretty memorable there. But
I don't remember Chad Morris's intro press conference. I remember his first team meeting when they put all that out there, and that was like as somebody put it up there earlier, like the full tilt boogie, left lane hammer, like all those cliches that make us want to rip our faces off. That one was bad, but I don't think I ever watched, like, I don't remember Bielema's intro presser. I don't remember Mike Anderson's. And I feel like those might've had some moments, but I don't remember. I don't know that I ever watched them actually.
Yeah.
I remember Muss's.
Yeah. I remember Muss's.
Yeah.
Muss's was pretty cool. Yeah. Seeing him in a suit now, and but I kind of liked Muss's because looking back on it and knowing him now, you could tell he did not want to be there. He was not comfortable in that suit. He was just like, I don't want to talk to all y'all. I just want to coach. I just want to get to coaching right now. Like, you could just tell. But the Brett Bielema one was pretty wild because there was a lot of people, national media people there, because it was a big deal. And he was very cool. And then what was the other one? The Mike Anderson one. Was
that when he was talking about getting in a fight with a bear?
Yes.
That was the intro. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And that was real. They made a mistake that day because they had, guys, remember the Cal thing where they had the whole audience there and then the stage and everything. They decided to do the press conference with the media at the same time in the big room with the entire audience there.
Oh, hell yeah.
So there was a reporter from Missouri that came down, and I forgot her name. I don't know if she was a student, but she was just like basically calling out Mike Anderson, be like, you didn't, you wish you would have handled it differently, you leaving, and should have met with your team in person. And the crowd started booing, just like booing this girl. And then Mike's like, hey, it's legitimate. It's legitimate. It's legitimate. I had to calm everybody down to ask the question. That's awesome. What I remember about it, is they just made the mistake of having a press conference with the media in front of the entire audience. So
that's good.
That was pretty nasty. Let's see. Anything else? Because I know we just got a few minutes here.
That was a good question of the day, John.
Yeah,
that was a good question of the day.
Yeah.
Do y'all want me to recap what's been going on in the chat during this episode?
I think I've got a pretty good handle on it, but sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it's something dumb, but
Oscar Tshiebwe, good or not?
We had someone that said, man, if Arkansas had Oscar Tshiebwe, they'd be better, which I thought was a funny comment because it's like, yeah, I mean, like everybody would. But then somehow it devolved into, was Oscar Tshiebwe good at basketball? Which, listen, I understand, didn't have a long pro career, but like Oscar Tshiebwe was objectively awesome. What are we talking about?
If there was one man that could single-handedly solve so many of Arkansas's problems right now, it would be him.
I mean, seriously, that's why I thought it was a funny comment where I was like, yeah, we'd be a lot better if Oscar Tshiebwe were on this team.
Good college players versus good pro prospects. There's a debate to be had there, but yeah.
I feel like there was something else crazy going on in the chat.
Sometimes the chat becomes its own show. Like they just have their own little show in the chat.
I was sitting here reading every comment, bro. I wasn't even listening to anything y'all were saying. I was sitting here just reading the chat. They were getting after it today.
Well, I guess a few of them that we did star that we can at least do before we get out of here. comes from Jared. He says, not an Arkansas fan, but I've been watching your coverage recently. Y'all are fair and level-headed. Also, y'all deserve more.
Thank you. I agree with everything you said.
Yes.
Jared, you're a good man. Thank you.
I don't know who you're a fan of. I assume it's Kentucky, but yeah, if we appreciate you checking out.
It's crazy that we assume that. We were doing the post-game show, Andrew and I, the other night, and we were both like super taken aback at a Missouri fan being in there. And I was like, wait, they just played Missouri. That actually makes sense. Not the hundreds of Kentucky fans taking shots at Cal. But then we had like an Auburn fan, and there's people all over the place checking it out. So that's I mean, you know, Razorback fans, you come first in our heart. Absolutely. No doubt about it. But it is kind of cool to see people from all over the place chiming in now, even if it's at our own expense. But there's eyes on this thing, man.
We had an LSU fan that was like, you want another ass whipping? It's like, hey, relax. We're good, dude.
You know who that was, by the way? That's the dude that threatened to kill me and John if we ever go to Baton Rouge.
Really? Was it really?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Like back in the Natty State days. He was being very cordial, though.
Shout out to him.
I forgot what he said exactly, but I remember his threat was pretty like,
kind
of remind me of the threat I got the other day, but from that Kentucky fan. Like it's something similar to that.
You know what happens a lot?
He said we'll wind up on a T-shirt if we ever.
You know what happens a lot is people hop into the chat like expecting us to say something pro Arkansas, and so they're like ready to argue with us. And then even if we don't say it, they'll still argue it. They'll be like, "Oh, you think Arkansas is going to turn it around?" And we're like, "No." Well, if you think they're going to turn it around, you're an idiot. And it's like, you know, it's so it kind of just. You just have a lot of folks that are sitting there waiting for us to say something like that they can argue with, and so they'll just latch onto it.
Yeah. Well, I do appreciate the shout out I did when I was watching Pot at the Palace down from Shreveport, but had the Missouri fans like neighbors is silent. Like,
that happens every time.
Every loss, it's like, oh, John's just like, conveniently absent.
Fitting that neighbors isn't here. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, because I'm only on the ones we win. That's the only post game shows. Get on there is when Arkansas wins. That's the only ones. But also, what was I going to bring up? Oh, about that. Oh, so just real quick. Remember that guy, that former Missouri cheerleader that will randomly tweet at me and all that? Yeah, she had I mentioned, hey, 0-5 or whatever for Arkansas, and she quote tweeted it, kind of trying to, stir up stuff. She's like, wouldn't it be funny if they go 0-16? I'm like, they play 18 SEC teams, but
unless Cal not only steps down but forfeits the season after 16.
Yeah, it's just like we're not doing this anymore.
No,
like when he walked his team out of Bud Walton Arena when they were getting beat a couple years ago. Before it's over, he's just like,
No, that's what they'll end on.
We didn't lose, we quit.
Yeah.
All right, a few more chats here. Russell just says red jacket or for pimps. So
like that. Russell. That's another thing. Russell Baxter was trying to get Indiana to hire Cal.
Yes.
That was the other thing in the chat. He was like, you think there's any chance Cal would want to go to Bloomington? I'm like, hell.
Would we do a trade for Mike Woodson?
No,
but we'd get Khalil Ware back.
Yeah, get him on the run back.
Hey, thanks for Justin. He also had a comment where he's like, Justin Smith was a good basketball player. I'm like, yep.
And this was a fact.
Do you remember when Indiana fans like hated Justin Smith?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. And then, it actually worked out. I thought the same thing would happen with Trevin Brazil because Missouri fans hated Trevin Brazil so much.
It doesn't matter what happens the rest of my lifetime. Justin Smith is going to be one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For a one-year guy, too. Man.
Top 5 most handsome hoop hogs of all time, Justin Smith.
Good-looking guy and very well-spoken. Intellectual. Yeah. He's one of those guys where you ask him a question and you wonder if he heard you because he's like actually thinking about it before he gives you a pretty insightful answer.
Hey, but according to vids from me, Justin Smith sucks though because he's not crushing it in the NBA right now.
Got it. Jeez. All right. Well, is there anything else? I guess we can. Just real quick, this last chat. I meant to bring this up because it just made me laugh. Do you think changing the presidential administration will impact this team's performance? I'm looking for anything to give me a positive view on the rest of the season. LOL.
Arkansas basketball looks like some big time Trumpers, man. So maybe so.
You're a big Trump guy.
yeah. Maybe now if the tax code changes for the NIL, they get more money. So they're like, oh, now we're cooking.
They did the you don't play on election day anymore, or at least it's frowned upon. And I remember, I guess it was the last election when they really were trying to make it a thing of like, hey, the college basketball teams aren't playing because they're going to go vote and everything. I don't really remember much of that push this year, but like there were like teams that would go together or whatever and, and try to vote. But I don't think they really made a push for that this year. What I'm saying is I don't think they're very political. I don't think they care too much. I don't know that for sure, but that's just my hunch.
Golly. Also, just my final thought here, and if you guys have some, but I may play the clip tomorrow, but apparently C-SPAN, they were covering the presidential inauguration, and they had callers that would call in, and a caller just called in while the inauguration's happening and everything, and just all the caller wanted to do is complain about the college football committee leaving Alabama out of the playoff, and it was magical. So I have to play that back tomorrow because it was on C-SPAN. But
I like that.
Any final thoughts, guys, before we get out of here?
No, not really. I will just say thanks to everyone that continues to watch the Pod at the Palace, even though this basketball team has been on the struggle bus. I really do appreciate that because it becomes more difficult to talk about it when people don't want to hear about it so much. We try to find different things to say every day, and when the numbers reflect that people are still tuning in, I really do appreciate that.
My final thought is I want to give Curtis some props, which I really don't like doing too often, but I feel like this basketball season, obviously Curtis, if he could have had it his way, would have gone differently. But I do feel like this year in particular, Curtis has widened the gap between him and the rest of the state when it comes to basketball coverage. Because I think what you're seeing is everyone can talk, about a certain topic when it's fun and when it's interesting and when it's cool. But what you're really seeing across the state is a lot of folks mailing it in because, basketball team sucks. They don't really have anything worthwhile to say, which there's no shame in that. But I feel like in a time like this, you can really tell a star from people who are just kind of covering the team. And I feel like Curtis has shown during this period, and I'm sure he's been going through it. In fact, I know he has. But I feel like anyone who's paying attention should be noticing what's going on in terms of Curtis and coverage compared to literally everyone else. And it makes me proud to be his coworker.
Sheesh, man. Thank you. God, you make me blush over here. And also thank you for letting me come over to your house after all that craziness Saturday and have a couple drinks and not think about this basketball team for a little while. Oh, and also just because you gave me a really nice and warm shout out there does not mean that I still don't plan on infiltrating your baseball live streams just to get in on some wins here and there. I'm just going to sneak my way in there and enjoy some success for a change. That's all I ask.
It's what we deserve. It's what we deserve is to have fun watching sports. And so I hope we can do that together soon. One of these days.
Well, either way, we do appreciate all of you tuning in for all of our content here at Inside Arkansas. So be sure to subscribe to us here on our YouTube page at Inside Arkansas. You can check out our website, InsideArkansas.com. For all the latest and greatest up-to-date information, all things Razorbacks. You got Pod at the Palace going. You got the Bombastic Podcast going wherever podcasts are found. Check it out there as well as on our social medias at Inside Arkansas. So for Andrew Ellis and Curtis Wilkerson, I'm John Neighbors. Same sports show, same sports channel. Tomorrow at noon. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and we'll see you then.